The clock glowed 3 a.m. A soft breeze rustled through my curtains, peaceful, serene. Then it hit, a blood-curdling scream. It wasn't a nightmare. It was real. I rushed to the window, my heart pounding. The world outside my window dissolved into chaos. This wasn't a blackout. This was something far more sinister. The streets were a torrent of confusion and despair. People surged past me, their faces etched with fear. A woman stumbled, her eyes wide with terror, clutching a child who wailed inconsolably. An elderly man lay on the sidewalk, his face contorted in pain, clutching his chest. Was it a virus? A sonic attack? Nobody knew. The air crackled with a palpable energy, a feeling of wrongness so profound it was suffocating. The city, once a symbol of human achievement, was now a hunting ground for something unknown and terrifying. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I leaned against a building for support. The screams continued unabated, a chorus of torment echoing through the concrete canyons. I had to find someplace safe, someplace away from the madness. But where? Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, but from what? The unknown was a terrifying enemy. Days turned into nights, marked only by the rising and setting of the sun. The screams continued, though fewer now, weaker, as if the source of the terror was slowly draining the life out of its victims. The lack of information was agonizing. Rumors spread like wildfire, a government experiment gone wrong, a terrorist attack, an alien invasion, each more outlandish than the last, yet each holding a terrifying grain of possibility. The lucky ones, or perhaps the unlucky ones, depending on how you looked at it, were those who had succumbed immediately to the madness. Their screams were silenced, their torment over. But for those who remained, the terror was a slow, agonizing burn. The city, once a bustling metropolis, was now a ghost town, haunted by the living. The world as we knew it had ended, and from the ashes of our civilization rose something new, something terrifying, something unknown. The government, in its infinite wisdom, had decided that the best course of action was to quarantine the city, as if whatever was happening here could be contained by mere concrete and steel. The army rolled in, their faces grim, their eyes hardened. They set up checkpoints, cordoned off streets, and began the grim task of rounding up the survivors. Those who resisted, who were deemed too far gone, were dealt with swiftly and brutally. I had seen things in the past few days that would forever be seared into my memory. The world had descended into a nightmare, and I was trapped within its terrifying embrace. I knew then that escape was impossible. We were trapped, rats in a cage, waiting for the inevitable end. The air itself seemed heavy with dread, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for the final blow to fall. And then the silence came. Section 5. The Voice of Judgment. It began as a low rumble, a tremor that seemed to emanate from the very core of the earth. The ground vibrated beneath our feet, and the air crackled with an unseen energy. Then a voice. Deep, resonant, ancient, it boomed across the deserted cityscape, echoing off the empty buildings. It spoke in a language I didn't understand, yet somehow I understood every word. Jeshi. The name echoed in my mind, pronouncements of an ancient being, awoken from a slumber that spanned millennia. Jeshi spoke of humanity's greed, our reckless disregard for the planet, our insatiable hunger for more, more, more. We had plundered the earth, poisoned the air and water, driven countless species to extinction, and now our time of reckoning had come. Jeshi's voice was not one of anger, but of sorrow. Sorrow for what we had done, sorrow for what we had become. And in that sorrow, there was judgment. Section 6. The Innocent and the Guilty. The voice continued for what felt like an eternity, a litany of our crimes against the earth. And then something strange happened. The screams, which had lessened but never entirely ceased, began to change. They became more focused, more targeted. It was as if Jeshi was separating the wheat from the chaff, judging each soul individually. I watched in horror as people around me clutched their heads and screamed, their faces contorted in agony. Some collapsed to the ground, writhing in pain, while others simply vanished, as if they had never been. But there were others like me who felt nothing. We were the homeless, the destitute, those who had taken only what they needed to survive. Jeshi, it seemed, had deemed us innocent. We were the ones who had always known the true cost of humanity's greed, and now we were the only ones left to bear witness to its consequences. Section 7. Silence falls. As abruptly as it began, the voice ceased. The tremor subsided, and the air stilled. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft moans of those who had been spared. I looked around at the desolate landscape, the once proud city now a graveyard of broken concrete and shattered glass. The air was thick with the stench of death and decay. Jeshi was gone, but the memory of its judgment lingered, a specter haunting the ruins of our civilization. We had been weighed in the balance and found wanting, and now we were paying the price. The world was silent still, but it was not an empty silence. It was the silence of a world that had borne witness to the folly of mankind, a silence that spoke volumes. The question was, what would rise from the ashes? Section 8. Scars of the Earth. The days that followed were a blur of survival. We scavenged for food and water, sought shelter from the elements. The world was a different place now, forever altered by Jeshi's judgment. The scars of humanity's greed ran deep, and as I looked out over the ruins of our world, I wondered if this was a new beginning.